Tonight on Capital Connection, the GOP vision for shared revenue and how that might differ from what Milwaukee is looking for. Here's CBS 58's Emily Fannin and WisPolitics editor J.R. Ross.
Biggest story out of the state capitol is now we know how much more money Assembly Republicans want to give local communities. It's more state aid. We're talking about shared revenue here. It's something that Milwaukee County and city have been begging for, and so with many other communities across the state. Let's just talk about the framework, because, Jared, we do not have a bill yet, but we have learned a lot of the developments about what could be included in this package. Overall, communities would get about a 10% increase in shared revenue. Now, communities would also have to meet kind of a maintenance of effort requirements on their spending that would go towards police, fire, and emergency medical services. In this plan, it would also allow Milwaukee to levy a 2% sales tax and allow Milwaukee County to add an additional 0.0375% sales tax to its current 0.5% sales tax. But there are a lot of strings attached in this package, and that's what we want to get into, JR, because they would have to approve a sales tax increase through referendum. Voters would have to vote for this. Now, a lot of that money would have to go towards the city's pension obligations. So that's the big question here, right? I mean, would voters even want to vote for something like this?
So, one, you have our Milwaukee officials really kind of complain about some of these, I don't call them punitive, but these restrictions been placed on them if this package is approved, right? You still have Senate Republicans and the governor to get through as well. Part of the reason is the dire circumstances they face if you don't have the sales tax revenue. This money would go largely toward the pension obligations. You would pay those each year with this money. All new employees for the city and county would go into the state's pension system. It would then be a soft close, the mayor said, of the pension system that the county and city have. You would sunset that tax after 30 years or the pension going away, system's going away, obligations being done. We go from there. With the referendums, the question is, if they don't pass, what's the alternative? There is not a good one. So I get the sense that Milwaukee officials still hope to convince Republican lawmakers and the governor to say, hey, can we maybe do an enabling legislation that says, okay, Common Council, County Board, you can impose this tax, not having to go to referendum. If you take the combined effect of what's there right now with the state tax, the county tax already, the proposed county sales tax addition, and the city, you're talking 7.75%. To put that in perspective, Chicago's is about 10, Minneapolis around 8, Detroit about 6. So it's not out of line, but it is a lot more money to pay when you're buying a pair of shoes. So will voters go for that? There's some real questions if they would.
And some of the proposals that could be kind of snuck into this bill that you're hearing and you've reported on is that the Milwaukee would have to agree to put a new system in place for the state pension system. There would be new restrictions on operating or expanding Milwaukee's streetcar. They wouldn't be able to expand it per se. They would also be required to put school resource officers in MPS in every school. They would also have to have at least one member of the Milwaukee Fire and Police Commission be selected from a list by the union representing that. So it kind of just makes all these other, you know, what ifs, possibilities, which could maybe make it more difficult for Milwaukee leaders to say that we love this package, but it's going to take give and take from both sides here to get to this agreement. Notice
the mayor and county executive did not trash this thing. They were very measured in their comments. They talked about how this is not the finish line. This is not a done deal. Now, Robin Vos, the Assembly Speaker, says this is 98% there. So the mayor and county executive, they're hoping for some changes. For example, the referendum thing. They maybe go to the Common Council and the County Board. It's also why they know that these provisions may be the price of admission. Republicans are not going to allow you to raise your sales taxes unless they get something in return. This is like a GOP wish list for Milwaukee the last 5 years, but they haven't been able to do it because of Governor Evers and his veto pen. So this may be a trade-off because the city and county know the alternative is not pretty. In fact, it's quite bleak. There's also this innovation component that Speaker Vos talked about, that if you are, two communities nearby want to combine services, say they want to combine their police department, firefighter, EMS, etc., they would get more piece of the pie. And this plan overall, too, would help smaller communities more compared to kind of the bigger ones. So that's why we also kind of saw some pushback by some individuals, specifically Waukesha County Executive Paul Farrow didn't really love the idea of this plan, but kind of like how I said before, not everyone is going to love it, but it is just a little bit more money to these communities who are, especially even in Milwaukee, are in these dire financial situations that they could be facing. They already are facing this fiscal cliff, and without this, I mean, there's this big what if they don't get this. Remember, you're also creating a way for future payments to go up. You take sales tax collections, 1 penny of every 5 cents goes in a segregated fund under this plan. And so as sales tax collections go up, communities get more. That's important because these payments have been frozen for about 20 years now. Looking back the last 2 decades, there have been 2 years that sales tax collections went down. So you're almost getting like a guaranteed increase every year for communities, which would be a welcome relief.
And looking ahead to next week, we are officially kind of kicking off the first day of the budget committee where they're going to be taking out hundreds of provisions in Governor Evers' budget proposal. Now, this is typical, right? They start the first session that they kick off with this, and then they start reworking it to their liking. And a lot of provisions, you know, recreational marijuana, expanding Badger Care, Evers' plan to pay for renovations at AmFam Field. All of those are going to be taken out, but there are still some ones that will stay in there, and those are the ones that we're going to be watching it for over the next several weeks.
So basically, this is the Evers wish list they're taking out of the budget, saying, okay, we're not going to do these things, but they're all going to say, okay, you proposed $10 million a year for literacy programs. We're going to at least talk about that. You proposed these new regulations for quarries, for example, that do aggregate that goes to road work. We're going to at least talk about that. You want to take state money and continue subsidies for child care facilities? We'll at least talk about it. Now, they can reshape it dramatically. At least it keeps on the table for the full budget as we shape it the next 6 weeks or so.
All right, and those budget committee hearings start on Tuesday and Thursday, and we'll keep you in the loop on what happens there. Thanks so much for joining us.